This is Patricia Tofree. I've talked to different folk about learning via the remote way, and I don't have children, but I'm always try to stay up on the learning capabilities now, and being not only an ex-teacher but a concerned person. Um, I was talking to a friend just yesterday, and we're talking about children left alone all day still, and more probably in our community than others. There's no adult supervision to even get them on the system. To if something goes wrong, we don't know what is happening. But in this case, this is a grandmother who the other grandmother has the kids because the mother and father are not available. Uh, Leaving them in the bed, going to work, coming home, getting them up, and then going back to work. So they're on this system of learning without any adult supervision, and then they're babysitting a 4-year-old. There's a lot of responsibilities in our youth, for some of our youth, it appears, just talking to a few people, how they are at home alone. And just being an ex-teacher, there are a lot of things that could come up with these systems that not that a 12-year-old couldn't figure it out, but I'm sure that there are some issues with getting in these systems, staying on them, being disciplined to go to classes. And one other thing while I'm talking, another example real quickly was a sophomore who's very, very smart, who expressed to us in a one of our Zoom school. We have a Freedom School every Sunday at church. Well, it's virtual, and she gave us her schedule, and she's very, very smart, and she said it is very hard. They are structured so tightly. She said by the time the school is over, all she can do is just pass out and go to sleep. That's how stringent, and how difficult some of these classes are. And I don't know if it's a system, the way it's structured, or the type of classes, but they didn't sound like any out of the normal classes that they would take if they were doing the classroom instruction. Those are just two that I thought of right offhand that I'm aware of with our youth. And then there was another youth, just one more, 13, and he expressed how difficult it was staying with the structure of the virtual learning. They can't wait to get back to class because that is more difficult and very hard for them, and it's not easy for many. Okay, I'm done.
No, you can keep going. Thank you.
No, I'm gonna. Yeah, no.
The first thing, the adult supervision. One of the things that I have been reading about is, and I see on the news and from where I'm at, in our suburban area, they erected several learning centers. And the more I see them, the more frustrated I become that they're using the CDC guidelines. One I saw this morning on the news was for about 20 miles away from here, where they took a vacant storefront, like 2 or 3 vacant storefronts, and turned them into learning centers. So using the CDC guidelines, so the parents could drop them off at the learning center. And I called a friend of mine, and they're segmented by grade. So if I drop you off at this, and it's just an abandoned mall or strip mall or whatever it is, where they have gone in and they've gotten their city officials to let them in and use these vacant areas. And so with that, if you're in the 4th grade, you can go to a 4th grade learning center, however many kids they can have in there. And so one of the things I thought, as I've looked at these, they have them in several school districts here, and they're manned by the teachers who would normally be in the classroom, and they're doing it for free as volunteer hours. And so some of it is innovation, some of it is thinking outside of the box. One story I saw a couple of months ago, it was a church. It was a Baptist church. They took their basement, they turned it into a learning center. They could only have 7 kids. They had an overseer. So what they did was they put a few kids however many in the basement of the church that could be in the basement of the church. And then they used another area. They socially distanced their learning pod, and they call those learning pods. And then they had a member of the church that had a nice sized basement, and she put a learning pod in her basement. And so I think what I'm seeing is that in the urban area, we didn't know to think like that. We didn't, you know what I'm saying? Now we're coming up with synergy. I participated in a Zoom call earlier today where the state of Kansas has this Beat the Virus campaign going. And so now they have these small groups where they're asking, what can you do to beat the virus? Well, when I mentioned the Learning Center, there was a pastor on there. He said, well, no one ever told me that I could have a learning center or a learning pod at my church. My church has been sitting vacant and not being used for months. And I could have, with 3 floors, you know how many kids I could have accommodated? And we have church members that would have. And so I think that we need to start having those conversations, because when they come up with the restrictions of who can, our faith-based organizations are now exempt. And so can we open this up and get this thing back in control using learning pods and learning centers now that we know that it can happen? We know there's a way for it to happen. So now can we do some benchmarking? And so that's what I'm saying. That's what I like about this environment, is that we can talk about it, because you all know an array of people who may, if one thinks of an idea, someone else and 2 or 3 other people come, we might be able to get a handle on this thing by, in a different way. The kids have to realize is that there are 168 hours in a week. If you take out 56 of those, because you get 8 hours of sleep, you're working with 112 hours. Some of the frustration with time that I think the kids are frustrated with is the fact that, and I'm going to use an example. My teenager was struggling with math. So we had a meeting, and the math teacher told us that he wasn't teaching the concept, that they were using groups. And because she kept saying, he's not helping me, he won't help me. And so in the meeting, he clearly told me, no, I'm not teaching the concept. I put them in I can't think of the right number, but they were learning groups, and they were supposed to learn the concept from each other. And so one of the things I think has happened is a lot of the strategies or techniques that were used in the classroom do not allow the kids to function independently in this remote environment, because the way the classroom was set up. That's not criticizing any of the teachers. That's just the way it was set up. They want them to learn from each other. And then the last thing is the structure. Schools have, and I'm not telling anybody on this line anything they don't know, but I think a part of it is that they're trying to meet the guidelines for contact hours, because they're trying to show that they're meeting the contact hours. And to meet those contact hours virtually it's a job. And so you do need adult supervision, because kids, if I was a kid, I'm a teenager. If I can sit up and watch TV, I'm an adult, and I have to be disciplined to do things, because I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. If the Chiefs are playing, I'm gonna watch the game. And so I think there's some things, and so it's a lot of learning there. And so that's what we want to do here.
Either a school district in North Carolina or the one in Cleveland. Those were the 2 that they identified in the article. One of the things that one school district is really considering is that when they're looking at the number of students that are failing, which is rapidly approaching 50% of their students over the first grading period this school year, they are now starting to institute what they call incompletes. Now, I teach on a college level. I'm a dean at a community college, and we've done incompletes in the college arena forever. It's not a normal thing for your K through 12 school districts, but they have taken that concept and starting to look at it, because they're starting to see where students they're getting these Fs, they're failing, and it's really hurting their self-esteem. It's killing their motivation. If you think about a high school student who may have been borderline to begin with, and now they're in classes and all they're getting is Fs, it's a great motivation killer. And so they're looking at using the incompletes, because instead of giving the student a failing grade, they're giving them an opportunity to complete and finish up at a later time so that they can spend more time on the learning and getting the concepts that they want. I bring that up to say because for some of you that are on the call, you may be seeing some of these same trends within your school district, but maybe your school district hasn't thought about highlighting an incomplete type of process. So that might be something that you might want to jot down, and so that you can have that kind of conversation with your teachers, with your counselors, as you're learning to maneuver through your own personal situations.